tall, lanky man walked into the bar and immediately began scanning the patrons. He was genuinely handsome and wore a plaid shirt, jeans, and cowboy boots, without a hat to cover his wavy grain hair. It was standard attire for this Western, country bar. Even though he spotted the woman he had been looking for, he lingered off to the side of the bar, where he could watch her without drawing attention. He waited until she had downed A, and the two of them occasionally got up to dance with one or more men who approached them. In each case, they declined invitations to join their dance partners at their tables. It seemed they had come here to have a good time, not to pick up guys. When she ordered her third drink, she didn't realize that the stranger had told the bartender to make it a double, and that he would cover the difference. When she reached for her purse to pay, he stepped in. "I'll pay for the lady's drink, if she doesn't mind." The woman looked at him for a moment before finally saying, "Just because I say yes to a drink doesn't mean I'll say yes to you." He smiled and told her that was perfectly fine with him. She raised her left hand, making sure her wedding ring was clearly visible. "I understand. You're married. And while you are a very attractive lady, I actually have another reason for wanting to talk to you." She turned on her bar stool to face him. "Oh, and what might that be?" Extending his right hand, he said, "My name is Brandon Knight, and I write short stories." The woman looked at him skeptically, but shook his hand. "I'll admit, that's an unusual line. Might be fun to hear." Her friend stepped in. "I'm going to dance. Are you all right?" "I'm fine. I'll be right here." After watching her friend walk out onto the dance floor, she turned back. "So, what were you saying?" "The short stories I write are about infidelity." "Infidelity? Is that why you're talking to me? Do I look like a cheater to you?" She was starting to get angry. "Whoa, hold on. I'm not accusing you of anything. I go around asking people if they've ever been cheated on, or if they've cheated themselves. If they have, I pay them to answer a few questions. I never ask for any identifying information about the people involved. If someone doesn't want to answer, I move on, unless they've already answered most of the questions, and they can walk away at any time. If you haven't cheated or been cheated on, I'll respectfully take my leave, and you'll still get a free drink." The skepticism on her face shifted to puzzlement. "So, Mr. Knight, if someone tells you a story about infidelity, what happens to that story? If you don't mind, please call me Brandon. I won't ask for your name. If the story is good enough, it gets published and I get paid. If it's not published, I lose the money I paid the person in any expenses related to collecting the story. And how much do you pay people for their stories? As soon as someone tells me they've cheated, or been cheated, on and agrees to talk about it, I give them $200, non-refundable. If they answer all of my questions, I give them an additional $300. So, the total can be $500. As an added bonus, you get to read your story in print, knowing that only you know who the real people are behind it." At that moment, the gears in her mind began to turn. "Let me see the $200. Not until you tell me that you're someone who's either cheated or been cheated on, and that you're willing to answer my questions." She took a deep breath. "All right, I cheated, and maybe I'll be willing to talk, as long as we can avoid saying anything that might identify me, my husband, or my former lover." "Agreed. Can we go somewhere more private to talk, since we want to? Keep this confidential?" "First, I need to tell Agnes. We're not allowed to sit at a table, in a booth, or go outside with a man unless the other one goes along too." The woman went over to her friend and explained that she was going to sit at a table, but she wasn't planning to go outside with the man. They ended up in a booth as far away from the other patrons as possible. Sitting across from each other, they settled into their seats. Brandon pulled out a notebook and went over the confidentiality rules again. He emphasized that she could stop at any moment if she began to feel too uncomfortable. That seemed to calm her nerves a little. "So, just to confirm, you said you were the one who cheated?" She nodded, then paused. "Wait, how do I know I'm not being recorded?" I am recording your answers, so technically, yes, you are being recorded. It's up to you to avoid giving me anything that could identify you. He smiled. By the way, you'll need to speak into the microphone in my bolo tie. Your husband is outside eavesdropping. They both laughed, and then he placed 2 $100 bills on the table in front of her. Are you ready? All right, let's begin. Question 1. Are you currently having an affair? No. I broke it off a couple of weeks ago. Which of the following time frames best describes when the affair started? A month ago or less, 3 months or less, 6 months or less, or more than 6 months ago? Are we talking just about the most recent affair? Yes. Things get too complicated if we try to cover multiple affairs. Then it would be 6 months ago or less. God, I can't believe I'm talking about this with a stranger. If this is too much for you, we can stop. He reached for the money, but she quickly placed her hand over the bills. No, I'm fine. Go on. All right. The person you had the affair with. Was it a man or a woman? What? Do you think I'm a lesbian? Hey, I can't predict what a lesbian looks like. You'd be surprised how many people I've interviewed have had both homosexual and heterosexual relationships. These days, being gay is almost something to be proud of. Personally, I don't care what kind of relationship it is, as long as the story gets published. Sorry, it just felt wrong. I guess I'm still a bit old-fashioned. But if you're curious, no, I don't go that way. Got it. Next question. Was the man you recently had an affair with of the same racial or ethnic background as you? A more worried expression appeared on the woman's face. I'm a little afraid to answer that question. To be honest, interracial affairs are actually more likely to be published. So, if that's true in your case, please go ahead and tell me. Based on your hesitation, I'm guessing he's of a different race. Do I have to specify which race? It's preferable, but not required. All right. I'll just say he's of a different race. That's probably a smart move, especially if this could be traced back to you through a small social circle. Next question. Did you meet this person at your workplace, in your neighborhood, through religious or community organizations, or via social media? If you'd rather not answer about your workplace, I'll assume it's a small environment where someone might easily figure out who the person is. I work for a large company. I met him there. All right. How did you first meet him? Before she could answer, the waitress brought her 4th drink of the evening. A double, of course. As soon as the waitress left, the woman continued. He was introduced to the employees on my floor by the HR staff when he was first hired. After that, he would stop by my desk to chat. And flirt? Yes. We flirted. But that's not unusual at our workplace. We often joke around with each other, except when the boss is nearby. So, when was the first time you felt there might be something more than just flirting between you? This is a bit embarrassing. We were riding the elevator to our floors. It got really crowded, and I ended up standing in front of him very close. It was so tight that my backside was pressed right up against him. As the elevator went up, I felt something cylindrical press against me through our clothes. I tried to step forward, but he placed his hands on my hips and gently pulled me back. He kept growing harder, and I kept getting more tense. By the time the elevator stopped on my floor, I could feel moisture running down my leg. He stayed in the elevator, and I headed to the restroom to, relieve myself. Oh God, I've never told anyone that before. Are you okay to continue? I think I need a break. Retelling that story really got me aroused. We'll continue whenever you're ready. A few minutes later, she told him to go on. So, when and where did your first actual sexual encounter take place? Again, in the elevator. We tried to enter it at the same time so we could be alone together. Usually, someone else was there, so nothing happened. But sometimes, when it was just the two of us, he'd hit the stop button and we'd help each other out. Or I'd, pleasure him. If you're asking about actual sex, That happened in an empty office behind the mailroom. I was the only one, with a key to that office. We used the desk. What was the reason the affair ended? Guilt. He lost interest. You lost interest. You got caught. Couldn't find a safe place or something else. Something else. I ended it because I realized that if an affair with the same person goes on too long, you tend to get careless, and the chances of being caught increase. When you've been having sex with someone for that long, the excitement factor also starts to fade. Sex with a lover can become just as dull as sex with a husband. I couldn't believe it myself, but one day I actually yawned during sex with my last lover. She blushed and giggled at the memory. Brandon offered gently, I understand these questions are getting very personal. I appreciate your honesty, but let me know if they become too uncomfortable. I'll remind you again. Your answers are completely confidential. Would you like to continue? Will I get the remaining $300? No, not yet. All right, then keep going. I've already told you most of it. Did you have a preferred position during sex? All positions were good, but I think I liked cowgirl and reverse. Cowgirl the most. Doggy style was great too. And what kinds of sex do you prefer? Favorites? She smirked and finished her fourth drink of the evening. Do you think you'll have another affair? If you mean, will I go looking for one on purpose? Then the answer is no. If a good opportunity presents itself, then yes. That's not on the questionnaire. But how would you define a good opportunity? Well, if the guy is hot, and the timing and place make it unlikely, we'll get caught. Does it matter if he's married? No. If it doesn't matter to him, why should it matter to me? It would be hypocritical to care about that while I'm cheating on my own husband. That brings us to the next set of questions. What do you think was the main reason or reasons that made it acceptable for you to cheat on your husband? Was he inadequate in bed? That includes being too small, finishing too quickly, or not engaging in enough foreplay. Did you want sex more, often than he did? Was it the thrill of the secret affair? Did you drink too much and get carried away? Did you fall in love with someone else? Something else? I don't consider my husband inadequate. I would prefer if he were bigger, spent more time on foreplay, bathed more often before sex, and spent more time touching and caressing me. Usually, the first time he finishes quickly, but he can go again and last longer the second round. Honestly, now that I think about it, I'm probably sleeping with another man simply because my husband is just one man, having variety in sex. That's the main reason I do it, and the excitement of keeping it a secret. It takes a lot of effort and planning. You know how it is. Brandon and the woman were interrupted by her friend Agnes, who said, I'm going to sit at a table with Fred. I figure it's okay since you did the same. Don't worry, we're not going outside. Hearing no objections, she and Fred moved to another booth out of earshot. Are we almost done? My friend has a habit of getting herself into trouble, and I promise to keep an eye on her tonight. Yes, we're almost finished. How do you think your husband would react if he found out? Would he hit you? Kick you out? Leave? Threaten divorce? Seek divorce? Try to get revenge? Or would he forgive you and beg you to stay? If he wanted you to stay, would he insist you end the affair? Or would you be the one to make that choice? Phew, that's a hard thing to think about. Of course, I've wondered. Getting caught is part of the thrill, and probably the main reason I keep having affairs. Here's how I see it. First, I need to do everything I can to make sure he never finds out. If he did, he'd probably threaten divorce. But I think he'd back down once I begged him not to go through with it and promised never to do it again. I really do love him, and he's been a good husband, a good father, and even a decent lover. The sex, outside the marriage, it's just something I want. And honestly, I don't think it hurts our marriage. He knows he wouldn't do well in the financial split that usually comes with divorce. Unless he had photos, videos, or audio recordings, he wouldn't have grounds to get more than a 50-50 split. I really don't want to talk about this. It's too depressing. This has been very interesting. I think this could turn into a story I can easily sell. All that's left is... The woman caught a glimpse of a man approaching their booth. It was her husband. Darling, so glad to see you. This is, Mr. Knight. He's a writer. He's interviewing me for a story he's writing about happy marriages. He says there are too many stories about cheating spouses, and he wants to balance the narrative. Hi, Brandon. Hey, Lester. A look of horror and shock spread across the woman's face. You two know each other? Her husband replied calmly. Of course. I hired him. Brandon is a private investigator. She felt like she was sinking into deep water with concrete shoes. Sweetheart, I just made up this crazy story to get some money. He was dumb enough to believe I was telling the truth. Look, I've got $200 from him, and he still owes me another $300, but the look on her face said it all. She knew she'd been caught. Nice try. You always were quick on your feet. Too bad you couldn't resist. Oh, sorry, I forgot. You said your favorite position is cowgirl. Lester, how do you know I said that? Brandon replied, I lied about the interview, being confidential. I didn't lie about the microphone in my bolo tie. The woman began to cry. Lester announced, Well, Brandon, I guess I owe you $100. Still sobbing, she asked, You only paid a private investigator $100 to spy on me? No, my dear, I paid much more than that. You hid your affair very well. When Brandon couldn't find any proof through regular surveillance, he came up with this setup to lure you into a trap. I bet him $100 that you'd be too smart to fall for it. Looks like I was wrong. By the way, the correct answer to the question, what would your husband do if he found out, is divorce. No, you wouldn't divorce me over a harmless fling, would you? Want to bet? Thank you for being with us. And if you're one of those who watches silently, just leave a like. It helps new stories come to light.